Okay. Hello.
Hello.
So, so when you reached out and you messaged me
Yeah.
and you told me that you'd been struggling with anxiety disorder since you were 19, I was slightly taken back and a little bit like, oh, interesting. I did not know this about Fran. So I guess
Yeah.
if we can begin with you just telling me your story, like when did it begin or when were you aware that something wasn't 100%?
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Well, firstly, I want to say that this is actually something that most people don't know about me at all,
Okay.
which I think happens a lot with people who suffer from anxiety. Like it's not, and this is another thing as well, that people think that if you suffer from anxiety or any kind of like disorder, that you're going to see them in the street and they're going to be acting weirdly or whatever. But no one knew that I suffered from anxiety for a very long time, because obviously I can still go out and function and things like that. And that's like a thing that I feel like people don't really realize, that people can be struggling even though they're outgoing or they're having fun or they seem completely normal or fine as well, you know?
Definitely.
But basically, how it happened is I was 19. I was working in a bar at the time. So I was working really long hours here in Marbella. And while that was happening, quite a lot of stuff was happening like at home for me. Like, so my parents' marriage, which I kind of found out later on had been bad the whole time, really broke down at that point. So that my dad, who was never really around anyway, moved out, like officially moved out of the house into his own apartment and stuff like that. And I think a lot of that stuff was happening, and I was just like shoving it down and just working, shoving it down, working, shoving it down, working. And then I stopped working, and my sister and I went on a holiday to Canada. And when we got to Canada, it was like the shit hit the fan. It was like all of a sudden, after like working really long hours and working all the time, I had all this time on my hands. Anxiety was like, hi, bitch. And I was like, what? What? What is this? And of course, I'd never heard of anxiety disorders before. I didn't know, I really honestly didn't know anything about anxiety at all.
Yeah.
So the first thing that happened to me, it was almost like an onslaught. It was really discombobulating, confusing. I didn't know what the hell was happening to me. Was that I kept feeling like I was going to swallow my tongue
Okay.
and die,
Jesus.
which is like the weirdest shit to come out of nowhere. You're just like, what? What is this? What was it? Like 3 weeks we were in Canada. The first week, every minute I had to be like awake, watching TV or reading a book or distracting myself, because I was just constantly holding myself back from what I thought was going to be me swallowing my tongue and then dying, basically.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, I don't know what's going on with me. So obviously there's something seriously wrong with me, either going insane or like I'm losing my freaking mind. I'm going to have to be sedated, or I'm going to have to like go into a mental facility, or I'm just not going to be able to live with this. And I might just end up killing myself, because how the fuck can anyone live with feeling like they're going to swallow their tongue every 2 minutes and die? Like, I was like, what the fuck is going on, you know?
So you were really,
And
so
it
you
was
were really freaking out that that you were going mad in that time, that there
yeah,
was something.
yeah, because I was like, what's the other explanation? Like, I've gone through all this time of nothing happening to me, and then literally out of nowhere, this bizarre sensation, this urgent sensation has just taken over my entire body. And like, I could feel my tongue swelling up, which of course now I understand all these things, but at the time I could feel my tongue swelling, which made me feel like I was swallowing it more. And then I was
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like, a vicious cycle of like, oh shit, like this is bad, you know,
Yeah.
like the shit's gone down, like that's it. It was actually my sister who very first just looked up online, like I guess some of my symptoms, like what I was feeling. And she said, oh, I just printed out this article for you about anxiety.
Yeah.
It sounds like that's what you have. And I was like, oh, okay. So I just like read it, and I was like, oh, okay. So this is anxiety. But it wasn't like the article didn't make me feel better in the sense that this is still happening to me and I don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I had a really vivid, like I have a very vivid memory of this. We were in like the Mexican Quarter, because then my mum came out as well and stayed. And I remember sitting in a restaurant in the Mexican Quarter with her and a friend of hers. And we're all talking except for me. And I'm just sat there watching them all. And it's like, I'm not there. They're all there. And they're all talking and I can see them and I can hear them. But I'm not there. I'm like just not present at all. It's like I'm watching someone else's life. And I was like, oh, okay. So this is going to be the rest of my life then. I'm just going to constantly feel completely detached from everyone and just be watching like everyone's life happening around me without me being in it. Even when I'm talking, even when I was literally talking to them as I'm talking to you, it's like I'm hearing someone else talking. It wasn't me. There was like no connection to it.
So were you like dissociating?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I was completely dissociating from reality, which of course at the time I'd never heard of that before. I didn't even know that's what was happening. Again, I was just like, okay, well, going crazy now. What's going to happen? This is life now. Like, great. It was like a petrifying experience. I had no idea what was going on. I was sitting in a cafe the next day and like telling my mum what was happening because she hadn't been there. And I just like broke down in a cafe, like crying, like, okay, well, I'm, you know, I have anxiety. I obviously am not going to be normal anymore. Like I guess that's it. And she was like, okay, no, there has to be something we can do about this. We have to be able to kind of sort this out. And that's when I kind of started like looking into in the very beginning, anything that I could do for anxiety or what was any kind of advice for it.
So quite early on, when you started getting these feelings and started freaking out, you quite quickly started looking for a remedy for it. You wanted to figure out what it was quite early on.
Yeah.
That's quite impressive, because a lot of people end up just, they're not even aware to think that there's a way of fixing it. Do you know what I mean? So what were the first things that you were doing to try and fix it?
I really don't know if it was helped in a placebo way or if it helped literally. It was kind of like a homeopathic tincture that you like put in water, which is like a natural sedative, let's say.
Yeah.
Which that started like my first kind of introduction to, I guess, taking a sedative as a remedy for anxiety. But maybe partially because of that, but also because of doctors and a complete lack of information, even though so many people suffer from this. For a really long time, I thought that was the only thing that could really help, was some form of sedative, which now I know that isn't true at all. But for a really long time, I didn't really know that. So I kind of took that. But also it's important for me to tell you that I have suffered from anxiety since I was 19 on and off. So I've actually had the longest I've gone without it while I've had it is 2 years.
Okay.
Where I didn't feel symptoms. Now, when I look back, I know I was suffering from anxiety symptoms, but in a completely different way, because what I first had was panic attacks, constant panic attacks. And when I realized that they were panic attacks and I learned about them, then when I didn't have constant panic attacks, I was like, oh, well, I'm not suffering from anxiety right now. Of course, now I can look back and say, okay, I was still suffering from anxiety, but just on a different level and on a less intense level. And therefore I was fine.
So this is something that I'm interested in, right? So a lot of people at some point in their life will deal with anxiety on some level, but then some people they're stuck with it for life, and it's a disorder that is something that you end up managing, coping with, and end up having your entire life. So where do you feel you stand on the spectrum then?
This is a really good question. For me at this point in my life.
Yeah.
Because up until either May or June of this year, I had literally come to terms with and accepted that would be my life for the rest of my life. Right. And now I know that that's the biggest pile of bullshit ever. Okay. And that's what anxiety wants you to think. and conditions you to believe. And now I actually know that that's not true at all. When I say anxiety free, there's no such thing as anxiety free. I think another thing that happens when anyone suffers from disordered anxiety is that we're so desperate to not feel like that. We're like, all I want to do is live anxiety free. All I want to do is be without anxiety. There's nothing wrong with anxiety. Like, this is the best example I've ever read. When I'm about to cross the road and a big truck comes and it literally just misses me by an inch and my body jumps back, that's anxiety making me jump back. My amygdala, my lizard brain, the oldest part of my brain, which is responsible for the fight or flight response for fear, that's taking over my body and making it jump back to save me in that situation. Yeah. So there's nothing wrong at all with having anxiety. And this is something that, as someone with anxiety disorder, I'm ashamed to say I did not know this until a few months ago. Yeah. I was like, I need to get rid of anxiety. I need to be free of anxiety. I can't live with this anxiety. Yeah. And then now I've learned, no, I just don't want to have disordered anxiety. Because, of course, like you said, there's a massive difference between anxiety and disordered anxiety. Yeah. Like, everyone in life suffers from normal anxiety. For example, I have a test tomorrow. I'm going to be worried about that test probably from now until then. Yeah. Disordered anxiety means I'm going to worry a month before that test, a month after that test. I'm literally ruminating over, what did I write in that test? Did I get it wrong? Am I going to have a bad grade? Is everyone going to judge me? Blah, 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 blah. All this shit just going on in your head, making you worry about it. And that's the difference between natural, healthy anxiety and disordered anxiety. And that's something that I feel like people don't make that distinction, because doctors don't tell you about this. They don't explain that to you. The information is there, yes, but it's not readily available enough or mainstream enough for people to just find it the first time, you know?
I mean, it's definitely difficult, isn't it? Because some people aren't in, partly because of the anxiety and that whatever else they're going through. Sometimes they don't have the space or the time to dedicate to trying to figure it out. But how did you get to this point where you were able to kind of change your relationship with your anxiety? Because when did you have that light bulb moment? Because it's go on. Because it's crazy, right? It's like literally my whole life from the age of 19 up until a few months ago, having a completely different relationship with anxiety. And then bam, it kind of came down to what happened to me last year, the end of 2018, the beginning of 2019. My sister had heart failure. And she nearly died. It was a very extreme, very traumatic situation, like to the point where I was told by her cardiologist that I had to watch her sleep to make sure she was breathing. Wow. This was a very intense time. Then when my sister got better at the end of 2019, my mum started getting ill, and I basically had what I suppose the best way to describe it is a mental breakdown. Okay. And what I mean by that is I had the worst anxiety of my life and clinical depression, which I have never suffered from before in my life ever. So that was like a double whammy that came out of nowhere. And for, I would say, 6 months, all day, every day, just racked with anxiety and depression. What is that? It was like? So extreme. Oh God. First of all, it's fucking exhausting. Yeah. I think a lot of people think that because something is internal and it's mental, it doesn't have a physical effect on you or a physical toll on you, which is complete bullshit. Because first of all, my body was just exhausted from like holding itself all the time. I would often get feelings like I was having a heart attack because I had intense chest pains, really tightness in my chest, not being able to breathe, feeling like I was going to pass out. Wow. I also had
this constant feeling of what feels like electricity going through your blood. It's just like this constant buzz of edginess, just coursing through your body non-stop, which again is completely exhausting. You don't, from the outside, it looks like nothing's happening, but so much is going on inside your body that it's just the most draining thing. And then when you have depression on top of that, then that's draining you emotionally. And obviously the emotional toll that takes is really, really extreme. That's when I finally was like, this is the tipping point for me. I cannot survive this at all. I need to get help. So I need to speak to a doctor.
Right. So I was gonna say, like, there's only so much of that intensity that anyone can endure. So I'm guessing you got to a point of, I mean, obviously you went through a lot, and then subsequently you were going through a lot. At what point does that desperation go like, okay, we need to do something about this because I can't manage it anymore?
I think for me, it was that I felt like if I don't get help for this time I won't survive it. Right. Like I will.
Go on.
I don't want to say that I was like, yeah, I will kill myself, but I was just like, I can't, one way or another, this will kill me.
Yeah.
Like one way or another, it can't, like, this is not, you can't live like this. You literally can't, no one can live like this.
Yeah, it's scary.
And I was like, it's genuinely the single, like, honestly, like, obviously I can talk about it now because as well, I'm able to really see it objectively and what I was really going through at the time. And honestly, it was the single hardest and most terrifying thing that I had ever been through. And then it got worse because then I went to the doctor. At first, I just spoke to my GP, and the first thing that he said was, okay, why don't we put you on some antidepressants, which obviously is the first thing that most doctors will suggest, you know. And he said that will tackle the anxiety and the depression. And I was like, give me all the drugs. I was like, I don't care. At that point, I was like, I don't care what you're going to offer me. Just give it to me now. You know, like I was literally like, I remember saying, I need the prescription now so I don't have to go the weekend without starting it. I have to start that shit now. You know, like that's the urgency of it, you know. First of all, I had really bad side effects from them. Mm-hmm. Really bad side effects.
What did you have?
The worst one, having this onslaught of suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
Which again, I have never experienced that before in my entire life. Like when I said to you that when I was 19 and I very first experienced anxiety, that was the first time in my life where I was like, okay, I can understand why people kill themselves now, because before that I was a little bit kind of ignorant. Obviously, I didn't judge people for doing it, but I was just like, you know, why would someone kill themselves kind of thing. And then when that happened, I was like, okay, if you just have a life like this, I can kind of understand why people would kill themselves. You know, that was like the first time I ever thought that. But I still, even then, I never had suicidal thoughts. I'd never had that in my life. Like that was really not me at all.
Yeah.
And it was non-stop. These intrusive thoughts. And it was like imagery. So for example, I go in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And I get out a sharp knife to cut a piece of fruit or a vegetable. Yeah. And I would have an overwhelming urge to slit my wrist with it. Literally. And just the image would come into my mind of me doing that. And it was the image of that 24/7.
And it's like automatic. You're not even consciously doing it. It's just happening to you. No, that's fucking crazy.
No, what it felt like the way I described it afterwards, what it felt like is like aliens invading your brain.
Yeah.
Because they're just invading. Like I'm not asking them to be there. They're just rudely coming into my brain.
They've invited themselves
all over it. You know, and they're just, you know, like there's really shitty house guests that don't leave and break all your shit, drink all your alcohol. And I was like, really? That cranked everything up to like 1,000,000 intensity, made everything so much worse, because then I was like, oh shit, I'm actually going to kill myself. Yeah. Oh shit. Okay. Because I was like, normal people don't have the urge to slit their wrists when they're in the kitchen. Normal people aren't lying doing yoga and have the thought come into their mind, well, I should just probably die. Like, during yoga. Like,
yeah, right.
You know what I mean? The little aliens are like, fuck yoga, I'm coming for you. The first thing that I did when that happened is what I think a lot of people do when they have any kind of scary things or mental stuff. I didn't fucking tell anyone.
Yeah.
Because firstly, I was trying to white knuckle survive my way through it. Secondly of all, I didn't really even know how to verbalize it at that point. Like, I was so truly terrified. I didn't even know how to explain it. The first thing that I did when I had my mental breakdown, one of the things that I did was start meditating.
Yeah.
With a little guided meditation app. Meditation itself is not going to do shit for anxiety. I mean, let's be honest, okay? That's all these wellness things, you know, they're like, do some yoga. Like I said, I was doing yoga and I was like, okay, bye. You know, like, you know, when you have disordered anxiety, when you have any kind of mental health problems, all of these wellness things are like, you know, throwing a feather at a balloon. Like, you can't do shit with that, okay? Truly. Yeah. But what meditation, guided meditation did for me is I used it to create a safe space for me to allow myself to freak out in.
Okay.
That's what I used it for.
Interesting.
So I would have a special spot in my room or outside on the terrace, depending on what I was using it for. I went in my room, I had my spot, I put my guided meditation on, and I spoke to myself, because at this point I was talking to myself a lot to try to like talk myself down, to try to figure out what the fuck was going on with me. And this is the first thing that I did. I sat myself in my spot. I put my guided meditation on and I went, okay, Francesca, you are having all of these images in your mind of you killing yourself. You are terrified of them. You're pushing them away at the same time that they're coming into your mind. Every time you go into the kitchen, you see a knife or use a knife, you get the urge to cut your wrist with it. Yeah. You're too scared to think of this. So, okay. So I was literally saying to myself, I was like, okay, come on. I was like, come on, little girl. That's what I was saying to myself. Come on, little girl. Sit here and think. Picture yourself killing yourself. Okay. Now, come on. Picture yourself killing yourself. Truly picture yourself. And I mean, I don't suggest this to people who are truly suicidal, obviously, by any means. I don't suggest to anyone who feels, you know what I like. I'm not trying to say do this and it'll help you, but I had to understand why I was having all of these thoughts and urges when I didn't want to die. This is the thing. I was like, I actually want to die. Okay, this means I want to die. So I sat there and I made myself picture in my mind the image of myself killing myself in every single way that you can kill yourself. Yeah. And then I would say to myself, okay, how do you feel now when you see that? When you see that image, does it make you feel relief? Do you feel repulsed? Do you feel like you want to get away from it? Do you feel like you want to lean into that? What are your feelings when you see that? I was like, all I want to do is get as far away from it as possible. All I want to do is push it away. All I want to do is feel like no. And that was the first thing that helped me realize, okay, I don't actually want to kill myself. I'm not actually going to kill myself because I don't want to. And I was like, fuck, okay. So that was the first relief that I had, because I was like, wow, okay, no, okay, I can at least get a hold of this by understanding that I might feel this way, but it doesn't mean that I want to kill myself. And this does not mean that I want to kill myself just because I'm having these thoughts. It doesn't mean that I'm suddenly a suicidal person. And that's the one thing at that point that really helped me get through that really intense time. And I even, which again, I don't recommend people do this. Please, people don't do this. Like, don't, just because I'm saying I did it, please don't do this. But I was standing in the kitchen and I had the sharp knife. And obviously in a very controlled way, I held the knife up against my wrist and was like, again, okay, Francesca, what do you feel when you're holding it there? Do you feel like you actually want to do that? And then I'm like, no, I just want to fucking throw the knife like out the fucking window. Like, no. And then I was like, okay then. So at least we know you don't want to kill yourself. This is not you becoming suicidal. So something is fucking up.
Right.
And then we go from that.
So it's like it's like you had to kind of ground yourself a little bit. You had to put your mind back in your body and figure out, okay, where are we actually at? Like, you had to become really present. Like, okay, am I suicidal? Is this real?
Yes.
No. Okay, it's something else. Let's fix it. What the fuck is going on? It's interesting because I mean, you very openly say that you have an anxiety disorder, but a lot of the things that you're saying, someone could misconstrue it as, oh, but isn't that schizophrenia, or she's hearing voices in her head? And it's like, well, actually anxiety disorders are complex and complicated because they're in your fucking brain, right?
Yes, exactly. And I think, and you know, that as well, and the thing is that as well comes from one of the very reasons that anxiety is so shit and why anxiety is so sticky and really makes you think that you're going insane. Because we as people, first of all, we hear our voice when we hear our thoughts in our mind, we hear them in our voice. They're not in our actual voice. It's just because that's the way we think, right? We hear it in our voice. So we immediately think that our thoughts are us.
Right.
Our thoughts are not you. No. You are the observer of your thoughts. The you is the person hearing your thoughts. The person observing your thoughts. Which I did not know this. Then I learned this. This is another thing that I was like, if I'm having suicidal thoughts, it's because I'm suicidal. Like you said earlier, Woody, a lot of these are automatic subconscious thoughts that all of us have. Many times, for example, a really good example of that is if you're driving and someone cuts in front of you and you go, oh, fucking asshole, I hope they crash and die. Do you actually want that person to crash and die? Of course you freaking don't. It's an automatic thought. Like, you got anger, this is a situation, you have an automatic thought. People who don't have disordered anxiety think that and don't worry about it and go on with their day. People who have disordered anxiety are like, oh my God, I'm a murderer. I'm going to kill someone. It's normal. It's your thoughts are, you know, they're hard to control. You feel like you can't control them. And that's a misconception that anxiety wants you to believe. Right. As well.
I guess the complicated thing is that you've got some mental disorders where it's psychological, it's thinking in your head, and then then when you get self-awareness and you become very aware of your thoughts and how you are the observer, that can alleviate a lot of the pressures of the thoughts that you're having.
Yeah.
How far were you able to get rid of the anxiety by being self-aware of it? Like, do you think that being self-aware can help all the way with certain brain chemistries and disorders and stuff?
No, sometimes it makes it worse. For me, self-awareness is a double-edged sword when it comes to anxiety disorders.
This is what
because part of the reason why you're so freaking anxious is because you're spending so much time analyzing your fucking self and everything that's going on. So self-awareness helped me massively because I was able to use it to really understand where I was at in the worst position of my life. And it helped me to understand that I wasn't actually suicidal when I thought that I was. Like, I was scared that I was because I didn't know what else was going on. So it goes a really long way to helping people. But then at the same time, when you're too self-aware, it just feeds into your anxiety because then you're just monitoring your thoughts, which is, again, another symptom of anxiety disorder, constant monitoring your thoughts. And then that can kick in and it can go too far the other way and really be detrimental to you rather than helping you. The key is to have a balance. Like, what it did for me was it also made me realize that the more I was pushing the thoughts away, the more they were coming. So it's like you have to allow discomfort. You have to allow things that are really scary. You have to let them come, because I felt better once I finally let myself, in my safe space to freak out. this is, I imagine it kind of like, this is my bubble. I can lose my mind in this bubble. It's okay. I'm set. I don't have to hold it in anymore. I'm safe to like lose my mind in this bubble.
Yeah.
I'm safe to let all of these intrusive thoughts come into my mind and stop pushing them away. And I have to say that did really help, because it is so true that what you try to stop and what you push away, your mind just sticks onto, and it comes even worse.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's really good for that. But obviously as well, there are other mental disorders which I have absolutely no authority or experience to speak about. I can't tell you how it will help other people. I can only tell you how it helped me in my experience with what I had, which I now know is general anxiety disorder, which is what I have suffered from, how it helped for me for that, and how important it is, regardless of how you do it or what tool you use, for you to create a safe space for you to freak out in. Like, I really can't emphasize that enough, because the whole time that anyone, I'm sure people who felt this way understand what I'm saying, the whole time that you suffer from this, you're constantly worrying that you're going to lose control, that you're going to go insane. After the first medication that I was on, I spoke to my doctor about the fact that I was having suicidal thoughts. And he then said that, oh yeah, that's one of the side effects of that medication. And I was like, so you're telling me that one of the side effects of medication for depressed and anxious people is suicidal thoughts? Okay, should I just like get some lighter fluid and like give you a lighter and just like douse myself and like let you set me on fire like when I'm at it? Like, I was just like, what the actual fuck is this? That was fucking crazy. Then I went on a second medication simply for anxiety, which I had even worse side effects from. I would look in the mirror and I didn't recognize myself. I felt like I was walking around in a fog the whole time. I felt sick, shaky. It was a nightmare. Now, medication works for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. I'm not dissing medication, but one thing that I have a really big problem with now that I know a lot more about it, I have a really big problem with the fact that psychiatrists and general practitioners, the first thing that they do with any kind of mental health is throw drugs at it.
Yeah.
That pisses me off, because the drugs, for me personally, and I'm only speaking from my experience, made everything so much worse. So much worse. And the worst thing is that no one warned me.
Yeah.
So they weren't like, here's this medication, but by the way,
I know it's fucked up.
Might have suicidal thoughts. Like, I went through sheer hell for 3 days before realizing that it was a side effect. Like, for 3 days, just sheer hell of thinking that I was going to kill myself, that I was going insane, that all this stuff was going on, all simply because doctors prescribe you things, but they don't tell you everything that's going to happen with them. They don't tell you that, they could actually make you feel worse. Like, this won't necessarily make you feel better. It might make you feel worse. Lots of medication works for a lot of different people. And I think that's amazing. And trust me, at that stage, if someone had said to me, here's a tablet that will take all of this away, I would have bought shares in it, like, trust me, I would have completely, like, I would have been like, yes, sign me up, But what I did instead, because I saw a psychiatrist at that point as well, and he wanted to put me on a third medication, I said, no, thank you. I'm going to actually have a break where I'm not going to have any medication in my body for the next few months, and see what happens.
How old
and
are you at this point? Just for the timeline sort of thing. At what age are you around now?
So this was last year.
That was last year?
No, this was last year. This was last year. And at this point, my mum was very ill.
Yeah.
And I was still suffering very badly from my anxiety and a bit of depression. But I was like, I don't want to take any more medication. And also my mum was becoming very ill at that point.
Right.
And my mum had type 1 diabetes, and she was having a lot of illness due to that, and her foot ulcer, and it was getting worse. And I was like, I just need to like focus. Yeah, I was like, I just need to focus on that. And she had been ill since just after my sister got better.
Okay.
So my sister just got better, and then my mum started getting ill.
Yeah. So it's like relentless.
And then, yeah, exactly. It's just non-stop. And then literally 2 months into my mum being ill, then I had the mental breakdown.
Fuck.
While my mum was ill. And then, like I said, was like, okay, I need to come off anxiety. I don't want to go through any of these symptoms anymore, any of these side effects. Then my mum became very ill, and I just kind of was like, well, I really, like, I can't afford to be feeling like foggy and like, I can't, you know, I have to be here for my mum, because my sister and I, the way that my mum was ill, she was at home.
Yeah.
So my sister and I were looking after her. And in the end, we were having to inject her because she didn't know if she'd injected or not, because she's type 1 diabetic. And we were having to really sort of do everything for her at that point, even though she still tried to do as much as she could, obviously.
Sure.
And that was very hard. It was really, really difficult. My sister and I really didn't leave the house for a lot of months because we couldn't, because we literally had to be there the whole time. And even though my mum was being seen by doctors and stuff in hospitals, they weren't really giving us the help. Like a couple of times I was like, we need more help, because she, you know, we can't, like, we're not nurses. We don't know what's going on with her. She's confused. So a lot of things going on. And then she ended up being hospitalized because she fell. And then they found out she had sepsis. And so then she was hospitalized. And part of that was a relief, because I was like, okay, finally, she's going to get the help that she needs. And then I was very much focused on that, which I don't know if you know this, but when you have an anxiety disorder, like being able to focus your mind solely on something really helps. But at the end of the day, it's just a distraction. Like what's going on with you is still going on with you. But literally when you can just focus completely on one thing, obviously it really helps. And I was almost in a way doing better because I had to. Yeah. Like we would go to the hospital every day, and it was all about that. So I was able to focus my mind on that and feel a lot better. I was also feeling better because of the fact that I had realized that I didn't want to kill myself anymore, even though I have to say that the intrusive thoughts still lingered for a while. So I would still get the urge to, like, when I had a sharp knife in my hand in the kitchen, I would still feel that weird pull, you know, to cut myself with it. But I could say to myself, okay, well, now you know this is an intrusive thought is happening because, you know, of your fear response to it. Like my response is such extreme fear to it that I was able to realize that that's why it's sticking to me so badly. Right. Because of my response. So I could at least kind of say to myself and be a bit kinder to myself and be like, okay, Francesca, don't worry about it. You know, this is normal. You know, this is normal now. You don't have to like listen to it. That was what I would say to myself.
Yeah, you figured it out. You could objectify it a bit more.
Yeah. I'm like, you can be here, but I don't have to listen to you. You know, cool, hi. But I literally don't have to listen to you. So
I got shit to do.
Carry on. Yeah, carry on. I'll carry on too. And that helped. And then, of course, unfortunately, after about a week, my mum had a surgery and then she had a heart attack. Yeah. And we were phoned in the middle of the night and told she had a heart attack. Which obviously my world just dropped out from under me when that happened. Yeah. And keep in mind, I'm still suffering from anxiety during all of this. But again, you know, when that happens, you can only think of one thing, and that helps you sort of not focus on any anxiety because you're just like that. So,
it's a whirlwind anyway, isn't it? So you're just in the moment.
It is. It's exactly. I still can't like piece all that time together in a way because it was so. And my mum was in the ICU for 11 days. Fuck. And she sadly passed away, which was a great shock because we weren't expecting it. And every day we were told something different. And it was absolutely life-shattering for me and my sister. So then came the grief.
Yeah.
with the anxiety. And my anxiety kind of like went in waves. So it would come really badly for a while, along with the grief and like, you know, coming to terms with all of the feelings that you have with grieving. We came back to the house. It felt alien to me. I couldn't connect to anything. I felt disconnected from everyone and everything. I felt disconnected from myself. It was a very strange, confusing and dark time. And then my anxiety would like kind of come very badly, and then it would be a bit better, and then it would come badly. And in that time, I was trying to really help myself. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go on Instagram.
Yeah.
And just like type anxiety.
Yeah.
And just see what comes up out of interest, you know, just to see. And I found this page, which is called Anxiety Josh. I should actually say that I found this page actually before my mum passed away. And I started reading it, and I was like, okay, this is the first time in my entire life I've literally ever read exactly what's happening to me.
Yeah.
Exactly how I'm feeling. And I was like, holy shit, okay. Yeah. This person knows what I'm going through because they've been through the exact same thing. And there are all these other people writing comments on the post saying that that's exactly what they're going through as well. And that's the first, which is absolutely crazy, that I've been suffering since I was 19. And last year is the first time that I've read anything where I literally identified what was happening to me with what was happening with other people.
And you're 36 now, aren't you?
Sorry?
And you're 36 now?
Yes, I am, yeah. And it was like, wow, the fact that I've never found this information before, the fact that I've been to doctors, psychologists, and psychiatrists, and not a single one of them ever even know about this material themselves to then offer it or share it. The fact that I had to do a random search on Instagram for anxiety to find that is shocking.
It is fucking crazy.
It's so fucked up, because I was like, if I had had this when I first suffered from anxiety, how different things would be. And then I saw that the guy who runs the page, his page is Anxiety Josh on Instagram. In case anyone who suffers from anxiety doesn't know about it, please go to that page.
Yeah, I'll put links and stuff.
Yeah. And I saw that he'd written a book with this other guy who had suffered from agoraphobia and anxiety called Untangle Your Anxiety. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get that book and read it, because his Instagram is like so good. I want to see what this book says, you know? And it's a small book. It's a short book. It's purposefully short so that people who are suffering from anxiety don't have to read a fucking big book. Right?
Yeah, you don't get overwhelmed by it. Yeah.
Exactly, right? Like you can barely focus on the words when you're really bad, you know? And I read it. And when I read it, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I don't have to live with anxiety, with disordered anxiety. I literally don't have to live like this ever again. What? That's what that book told me. Yeah. And I was like, hang on. Why has no one ever told me this? Why the fuck has no one ever told me this? Why don't I know this? Why did I have to wait until I was 36 years old and read a random book, which I randomly found through Instagram?
And so, and it had that much of an impact that it kind of started changing things for you.
Yes, because what it basically taught me in a nutshell is what I was saying earlier, which there's nothing wrong with anxiety. You don't need to get rid of anxiety.
Yeah.
And the part of your brain, especially when you have disordered anxiety, the amygdala, it overrides the thinking part of your brain when you have disordered anxiety. And that's why you have a panic attack, because your body's in fight or flight mode. Right. Even though you're not in danger.
Yeah.
It's fear itself is the danger.
Yeah.
And your body's on overdrive, and you can't switch that fight or flight response off. That is a definition of what disordered anxiety is.
Yeah.
And I had never been told that. I had never read that. I didn't know any of that. And then I realized Okay, so because the amygdala basically overrides your thinking brain, you can't think your way out of it, which is what we always do. You know, we're having a panic attack, we're like, okay, I'm safe. No, amygdala doesn't give a shit. It's like, fuck you, bitch, you're in danger. I'm going to pump some adrenaline and cortisol into your body. I'm going to get you going and all of this shit. And that's it. Because you can't talk it down, because it doesn't work that way. It's like the oldest part of your brain. And once that's switched on in a disordered way, you can't switch it off. The only way you can switch it off is by showing it that you're not in danger. So even though you feel like you're going to die, or like you're in danger, or like you're having a heart attack, you can't breathe, or when I was younger, swallowing your tongue, you show it that you're fine by carrying on doing whatever it is you'd normally be doing if you weren't suffering from anxiety.
I mean, maybe you did this during therapy, but have you ever looked back to where this originated from? Like, I know you said at 19 you started feeling it, but do you recognize where it might have begun when your brain started doing this?
Definitely. Now I do. But it's taken me to this point. Like if I was speaking to you right now when I was in my early 20s, I wouldn't be able to tell you any of this because I didn't know it. I really didn't know it. People would think that it's easy, because it's not easy. Like, I'm in recovery now, but I haven't gotten rid of my anxiety disorder yet. I still have disordered anxiety. It is a really sneaky bugger because it presents itself in new ways. Like when you get used to it being that, once you conquer one side of it, it's like, okay, I'm going to sneak in this way. And you're not going to recognize that me, because that's just worrying. No, you're still anxiety. You're just, like showing up in a different way. And basically doing the work and really, which I did go to a psychologist, which helped me figure out a few things and made me realize there are a lot of things from when I was a kid that I thought I was over, and clearly I'm not.
Yeah, right.
And one of those things is definitely the fact that my father was an alcoholic.
So was it there wasn't a very stable father figure there, so you were very much on fight or flight in that relationship was rocky.
Yeah.
For a
like
child.
What I realized now, like what I obviously, in hindsight, it's much easier for me to see it now, and also because of the work that I've had to do on myself because of what I've suffered. Yeah. I understand now that I think I'm going to be so bold as to say, I think that everyone who suffers from an anxiety disorder has been living their life, if not their whole life, but from one point or another, from a state of fear.
Definitely.
And when I was a child and my father was an alcoholic, and I would find his bottles and try to hide them, and he would get angry at me. This happened, this is my experience, my sister's experience, and my brother's experience as well.
Yeah.
It created fear in me as a child.
Yeah.
And also because my father was never around as well. That sent me the message that I was not enough for him to love.
Right.
I was not good enough for him to love. And when I was younger, again, I can tell you this now, when I was younger, I had a real complex because of that. Yeah. I honestly believed, I really didn't trust people to love me at all. Yeah. Like, apart from my mom. I have to say that the only reason why I'm not a completely fucked up human being is because I had an amazing mom. Yeah. who, thank God above, gave me so much support, so much love, such a place of security and safety.
Yeah.
That I could be the person that I am amidst a lot of trauma.
Amongst the trauma, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was very lucky to have that. But directly just from my father's behavior, I didn't trust men when I was younger, because I was like, okay, well, no, if my own father won't love me, how can another man love me? And I have to be perfect. If I'm not perfect, people won't love me. Right. And then if people didn't like me when I was younger, oh Jesus, did that affect me like really badly? If someone did not like me when I was younger, it bothered me so much.
Yeah, because you're reliving that childhood pain as when you were a kid. But when you're a kid, you don't feel it, because as a child, you need to believe that your parents are there for you. It's only as an adult, it's like an undeveloped part of the brain which is still reliving trauma in present day. But it doesn't serve us the same way as it used to.
No, it doesn't serve us at all. And the funny thing is that I had gotten over a lot of that. Yeah. In the sense that once I was in my early to mid 20s, I had completely gotten over that whole feeling of people aren't going to love me. I was like, screw that. That's bullshit.
Yeah, right.
And I realized, like, I had kind of like a weird, like, epiphany where I was like, the way my dad is his problem. It actually has nothing to do with me at all.
I mean,
and I could be the most perfect kid in the world.
Yeah, it's like, irrelevant, isn't it? It's funny when you get to a certain age and you can start looking at your parents and realize, oh, they're people too, and they had their struggles, and
they're human.
They're human, and what they did wasn't perfect for me as a child, but you can kind of explain it and detach a part of the trauma from, like, oh shit, that was a them problem. It's just we were the byproduct of it,
Yeah, exactly. And it's
but without that awareness, you're on automatic mode and you're just living the trauma every fucking day.
Yeah. And subconsciously as well, because I really didn't realize that was the place I was coming from. Like, I knew enough about myself and how I was behaving and how I was reacting to know that it was because of that. And I realized, okay, well, what's happening with my dad is him. This is his struggle and his problem, and it doesn't have to be my struggle anymore.
Yeah.
I don't have to carry that for him anymore. I don't have to try to fix that anymore, because that's not my job. And it's not actually my business, even though it has affected me badly. I was able to come to that. So I had, and when you do that, then you think, okay, well, I worked all that shit out, I'm fine. Turns out, no. There are aspects of trauma from when you're a kid that you don't realize that you carry with you. And you kind of make trauma patterns for yourself. Like, I realized that I was afraid to be fully myself with people. Like, I would share a lot with people, but I would always feel like I had to be a certain way. I always felt like I had to, I always felt like I had to, like, walk on eggshells. I know, right? I mean, the beautiful thing about this, and the beautiful thing about realizing this and us talking about this, everyone feels this way at one point or another. Like, show me one person who hasn't felt this way, with or without any kind of mental health struggles. Show me one single person that hasn't felt like they were just trying to be something they're not, or trying to shape themselves for other people's approval and not to be rejected, or literally put on an armor so that you don't have to have that vulnerable part of you hurt that already feels so freaking raw all the time,
I mean, I would even go as far as to say that the majority of people have a lot of these traumas. It's just the difference is some people become aware of it and some people don't.
Yeah. That's very true.
And then of course it's a spectrum as well. Like, some of us are fucked up and some of us got really fucked up, and it's
it does depend. And also, something as well that really helps me with my anxiety is realizing that it's okay to be fucked up. It's perfectly okay. Like, you don't have to fix that. The whole time that I was going through any of my stages of anxiety, because as I said, I had it on and off. Anytime I went through my stages of panic attacks or anxiety or things like that, and I should say as well, the reason why I stopped having panic attacks where I thought I was going to swallow my tongue is because I finally had the brain cells to ask my doctor, can I actually swallow my tongue?
Right.
And he was like, no, unless you're having like a seizure, you physically can't do it. So that's what helped me stop, having that particular symptom.
It's like a little psychological hack.
Yeah, right. Like if you think something, just ask someone.
Right.
Why do we never ask anyone?
I know. Sometimes you just need to dismantle the head fuckery and figure out how real
absolutely.
it is.
And that's another thing, is that I think as a defense mechanism, my whole life up until, again, probably my late 20s, I would not ask anyone for help ever.
Yeah.
Ever. Like, I saw it as a sign of weakness, I was like, no. I have to be able to do everything for myself. I cannot ask anyone for help.
Yeah.
And then I got to a stage where I was like, why am I punishing myself in that way when there are people who offer me help and I'm like, no, thank you. And then literally there's help available to me and I'm not taking it. So again, that's another thing about never going to see a therapist.
Yeah.
As regards to my anxiety. I'm not saying that you're going to go to therapy and be cured. Of course you're not. It doesn't work that way, But going to a psychologist helped me to realize a lot of things that I had internalized that maybe I didn't realize that I had. Like you said, you take a little nugget of trauma from when you're a kid and you work on that and you're able to resolve that and come to terms with it and have your peace with it. And then you think you're just like, cool. But trauma, it weasels its way into your mind and your heart and your body. And it leaves patterns that are hard to get out of, because it's very hard for me to, even though I know I'm doing it, and even though I'm a lot better now at sharing my feelings and like sharing really deep things that I never would have shared when I was younger with people. Like, I'll literally tell anyone. Like, I could be on a train tomorrow, and if I start up a conversation with someone, they ask me something, I'll literally tell them about that, because to me, I'm like, how important is it that we tell each other these things?
I think and it's like with practice, you get better at it. Like I started openly talking about my mental health only a few years ago, and now I'll meet someone and I'll figure out a way to start talking about mental health. Like I introduce it into the conversation. And I think there's a lot of strength in it where people can openly talk about mental health, because you offer the opportunity for the other person to do it as well, and not everyone gets that opportunity. And even if they deny it and they don't want to do it, you still have to offer it, so that maybe one day they will be like, oh, actually, I would like to talk about something. And it helps, man. It really, really helps.
Oh, God. Okay. I don't think people realize this is life-changing stuff. And the reason why is because what you're doing when you communicate with someone and share with someone something really deep and dark and difficult that you've been through, you are, first of all, whether, like you said, they admit that they've had the same thing or not, the first thing you're doing is telling them that they're okay. Hey, right. Not alone. I felt that. Yeah. Hey, there's nothing wrong with you, because I'm someone right here talking to you. I also felt that way.
Yeah.
Hey, it's safe for you, if you want to ever, to communicate that with someone else, because look how I'm doing that, and it's safe. It's okay to do that. We're not damaged goods. We're not damaged people.
Right.
Quite the opposite. Surviving with any kind of mental health problem is an immense sign of courage and bravery to live and function in the midst of really serious turmoil and fear, like primal shit,
right.
that people sometimes don't think about. Facing that every day, facing that even one day, facing that for half an hour, you are fucking brave and you're so strong. And sometimes I have to remind myself that and go, dude, Francesca, you are a fucking badass, okay?
Yeah.
You have literally gone through all of this and survived it and come out the other end, somehow still alive.
Yeah.
And not only that, but you are working on yourself, and I'm recovering.
Yeah.
I am recovering. It is slow. It's not a fix, because again, we have to stop this mentality. We don't need to be fixed. We're not broken.
Yeah, right.
We're not broken people. I felt broken. I was like, okay, well, I'm broken. I'll be broken for the rest of my life. The end. No, not at all.
How do you explain it to, say you've got a friend or friends that haven't or aren't openly talking about their mental health, or they don't feel like they're struggling with mental health? How do you explain it to someone that's not been through it, someone that's not experienced it? Because there are a few people where they're very much like, oh yeah, but just have a positive attitude. And it's like, oh yeah, thanks, I'll try that. But it's
yeah,
like, but obviously,
I didn't think about that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm just curious, like what you would say to those people that are either in denial or they're just a little bit unaware of how real the struggle can be, and that it's not something where you just go, nah, I won't have that. Like it's a little, you've got to do the work, right? You need to do the work to be able to start getting through it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's for me personally, I think that is the hardest thing, because mental health is an internal battle. Other people can't see it, especially when you have times of high functionality. So for example, I'm going out, I'm socializing, I'm having a lot of fun, and people don't know that I have anxiety. If I told them I have anxiety, they're like, but you were out with me the other night having a great time and you were laughing and you're talking with everyone. I'm like, okay, this is a perfect example of how you don't understand anxiety. Right. You don't understand mental health struggles. And the best way for me, in my personal opinion, to explain it to people who really don't understand it is by saying to them, okay, imagine your deepest, darkest, most like shameful fears that you've ever felt in your life.
Yeah.
Imagine they bubble up in your body and they just seep into every pore and they take over your mind, your heart, like your soul, the way you function. And it just makes you feel like you're drowning in that fear, in that feeling, in that worry, in that situation that happened to you, in that trauma. That's what anxiety is.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. And that doesn't even come close to describing it, because of course it feels different for each person.
Yeah, right.
It manifests in many physical ways. As I already said, you get a lot of physical symptoms from anxiety as well, that also people don't understand that. They think it's all mental and emotional, but it's also really physical, because, the adrenaline and cortisol that's rushing through your body when you're constantly in fight or flight is also affecting you. Rapid heartbeat makes you feel like you have shortness of breath. Feels like you can't breathe sometimes, even though you can. Your chest goes tight because your muscles are contracting, which can make you feel like you're having a heart attack. My arm would sometimes tingle and feel like pins and needles and dead. That's again because my muscles like contracting and holding. It's like an onslaught of emotions and feelings just overwhelming you completely from the inside out. That's what it feels like for me.
That's a pretty good definition.
That's how I would try to describe it to people who have no idea, because obviously it's a very difficult thing to describe. And I, like you, have had people say to me, well, why don't you just, think about what you're grateful for? And why don't you just count your blessings? And I'm like, mate.
Yeah, I mean, all these, it's funny, isn't it? Because there's a lot of like little tips and hacks to make you feel good about stuff. And there's definitely ways of being that is going to help you create a healthier ecosystem. But they're all just kind of cute and like niceties. But when you're dealing with a real struggle, being grateful isn't going to do shit. When you're depressed, being grateful isn't going to get. Grateful? Do you know what I mean? Like when you're depressed, grateful isn't going to get you out of it. And when you're having a panic attack, grateful isn't going to get you out of it. And I appreciate that. we're going to start bringing this to an end, but moving forward, I guess I'd like to know where do you see your awareness and your recovery going, and what are like your strongest tips, or not tips, but like things that you've got in place for your daily routine, or things that you do that like are really fundamental to you moving forward with this?
Yeah. Okay, so one of the things that I still use all the time is meditation, guided meditation. Yeah. But I cannot stress enough that, like you were just saying, you know, there's a complete difference between toxic positivity, which is people just like throwing, like you said, cute, positive slogans at you, thinking it's going to like be a band-aid on your shit. Of course not. Yeah. For me, find the things that, like you said, Heywood, support a calmer thing. So for example, if you like yoga, I do yoga as well. If you like yoga, if you like meditation, but the biggest thing for me is meditation. And the reason why is because I'm not using it as general meditation. I'm using it as a tool.
Yeah, me.
Yeah, so for example, I just use it as, again, like I said, to create a safe space. Now, people don't have to use guided meditation for this. It helps me because I put my earphones in and I have a soothing voice that I don't necessarily have to listen to, but who counts me into the breathing part of it. And then it's quiet for quite a while. And then it says something at the end. So I'm creating that space for myself.
It's the ritual of it as well.
Yeah, the biggest tip I would give to people is create a safe space for yourself.
Yeah.
And when I say that, I mean mentally and emotionally, but also physically. So pick a specific spot in your house or your garden where you will always go to, so that you start associating that spot with being safe.
Yeah,
so that when you feel overwhelmed, you can retreat to that spot and then create your safe space mentally, emotionally, whether that's with a guided meditation, or if you want like background sound, like, you know, like rain or those like nature sounds or background noise, just to be able to tune things out to make you feel safe.
Yeah.
Do that and allow yourself to lose your shit. Allow yourself to quietly lose your shit. Like, you know, I use it if I feel overwhelmed with emotions. I use it to like cry and like really lean into what I'm feeling and like name the shit I'm feeling and then just let myself feel it and then let it go.
Yeah,
anger, anything. Am I losing my mind? You know, like I said, I've used it for all those things. And for me personally, as a tool, that works really well because all I'm doing is creating a really safe space for me to allow myself to lose control, which is the one thing that I feel like we're constantly holding on to so desperately when we're suffering from any kind of mental health thing. That's my biggest tip. And the second thing is talk to people about it. Talk to people about it. Trust me, I didn't used to. You just said, Heywood, as well, that you didn't used to. I think it's a really typical thing because there's still a taboo and there's still a stigma around people having mental health. That means you're weak. I mean, this, you know, share these stories with people because you just knowing that you're okay. Like that's the biggest thing for me. I just needed someone to tell me I was okay.
Yeah,
and that it was okay that I was fucked up. It was okay that I was feeling all these things. It doesn't mean that I'm going insane or that anything bad is going to happen to me. Yeah. It's part of being human. Definitely, and even if some people have never experienced anything like this, we've all felt like rejection, vulnerability. We've all felt these things, and you can connect on one level or another with people. Definitely. And just knowing that other people feel that way is a really great relief. But also, you know, do your own research and don't really don't depend on like doctors or other people. Like do your own research and find what works for you, whatever that is, whether it's medication or it's something else. Whatever works for you works for you. Don't feel, you know, don't worry about being judged for whatever it is, because what works for you, and there isn't a cure-all. And also it's not a quick fix, you know. It takes time for you to relearn that you're safe in your own body.
Yeah, man.
That's really what you're learning, that, okay, I am actually safe. Even when I feel unsafe, I can sit with this uncomfortable feeling and I'll be okay. And that's how I'm showing my body and my mind that I am okay. You can switch that fight or flight response off now and I can just coast. I'm cool. It's all right, dude. Please calm down.
I love how passionate you are about this, you know. I'm
really passionate. I can
it's so
freaking hours about it. Really?
Yeah, but it's so important, Fran. I fucking love it, man. Like you've been through one hell of a fucking journey, and I mean a lot of us have, but it's the struggle's real, right? And
yeah,
I just, it's good. It's good. I like it.
It's so good. And it's so good what you're doing. Like, I love this series, and I think it is so important to have this. Like, I wish I had your channel when I was first going through this. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is what we need. We need conversations about this. That's what makes people feel, oh, that's me. I'm there. It's okay.
Yeah, and even though, like, you can get like 100 people that all suffer from the same disorder, but they'll all experience it differently. You know? So I mean, it's just the more experiences people can share with each other, the better, because it's really important. Yeah, no, I think it's really good.
It shows the beauty and the diversity of all of us, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
But we're all linked by the same thing, you know? Yeah. We're all linked by similar experiences in one way or another, but at the same time, we're all so different, and we experience it all so differently. And hearing each other's stories is what really helps us and makes us think, oh, wow, they got through that, so can I then.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah, and people will relate. Even if you've got different experiences, people can relate, can't they, to the struggle and the suffering that others go through, you know? And it is a big part of it is not feeling isolated and like, oh shit, I'm not alone. And that might not take away the struggle, but there's definitely like a fear element that can kind of get pushed to the side.
Absolutely.
We're gonna wrap it up, but is there anything else that you wanted to share which I didn't ask you a question about, or that we didn't go over?
Just that anyone out there who feels any of this shit, anyone who's ever felt anything like this or is struggling through this right now, just know that it's okay to feel broken. It doesn't mean you are broken. It just means you're human, you know? And when you're going through this shit, it can really make you feel like you're not yourself. But if I've learned anything through going through all this pain and suffering, is that I've truly understood who I really am as a person now, and like what I'm capable of. And even though it's really hard, remind yourself of how fucking amazing you are, that you get through one day going through anything like that. Definitely. 1 hour, you know, half an hour of going through it. Give yourself a fucking round of applause, because it's hard.
And this is it, like, going through pain and feeling sad is okay. Like, there is nothing wrong with that. Like, we should be able to, like you say, just lean into it, allow it to overwhelm you, do its thing, and then move on and carry on with the human experience, sort of thing.
Exactly. And trust me when I say this, we are all suffering one way or another at one time or another.
Definitely.
Mental health issues, not mental health issues, disorders, non-disorders, we all are. We don't talk about it enough, and that's the real illness that we're all suffering as human beings. We don't talk about it enough. And when we do, that's when we really understand how okay it is and how integral pain and suffering is to our human experience. But at the same time, it doesn't have to be your entire experience. It's okay. Right, it doesn't have to. Don't worry. It's part of it, but it doesn't have to be the whole thing.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
You're still okay, even if you're going through that. It's still okay.
Love it. Yes. I love it.